Alright, so this is the video on my coyote setup for arrows and broadheads. This is going to be kind of a long-ish video. This is a big topic for me because I really like bow hunting coyote, and it's been a very long and strenuous hunt for me. Still haven't gotten any yet with my bows, where I'm hunting currently anyway. There's a lot of them out there, but they're smart, and that's what I want to talk about. So, I have changed my concept of bow hunting with coyotes over the time that I have been. I first started out by just, doing the same as I would with any kind of like rabbit, deer, anything like that. You pick an arrow build for the specific game, knowing what kind of weight you want to punch through completely, things like that, and then you build that arrow. And doing that with coyote, it's not as easy because unlike a deer where you can set up specific scenarios, and same with the rabbit, specific scenario. I'll give a more example of the rabbit because it's an easy one. Like, with rabbits, they're extremely fast once they notice you, but if they don't notice you, you can get up to 15 yards in front of them and they won't really care because they don't see you as a threat until you start moving and really making movement, making noise, showcasing them that you are a big thing or possibly a threat. So it's easy to get up on them, and the only problem is that they're quick, so you're going to want a quick arrow. So easy solution, 500 spine arrow that's only going to weigh within 500 to 515 grains, which is the lightest I go. And most people hear 500 spine, that's 500 grains. What? It's because I put 150 extra grains in the front of all my arrows. That's the only reason. And the other reason is I would never shoot an arrow under 500 grains. It's just my rule of law. It doesn't have enough kinetic energy, in my opinion, to be ethically shooting an animal with. A lot of people differ, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to shoot this lightweight arrow just because it goes fast, and fast is better. Fast is not better. That is the biggest misconception in archery that has ever existed. And it's an argument I've seen so many people have, but it always ends the same. Kinetic energy will beat speed every single time. If an arrow has, like this guy, 340 spine, 600 total grains, that's a lot of weight. So it's going to be a lot harder to stop it once it's going. It might be going slightly slower. It may be like 225 to 230 feet per second out of my bow compared to, the 500s, which are going closer to 280. But that doesn't really matter because that 280, you know, it's going that fast, but once it hits something, since it's so much lighter, it's not hard to stop it compared to something like the 600 grain. It might be going a little slower, but it's a lot harder to keep it from going that speed because it's going to carry on through things with its weight. It's simple physics. If you went to fucking high school, you should understand these things. If you went to physics class, it's momentum and, mass. It's like if you're trying to stop a car, you're trying to stop a train. Obviously, the train's going to be a lot harder to stop than the lightweight car because the lightweight car only weighs, maybe 2 tons or a ton. Well, that train weighs like 1,400 tons. Big piece of metal. It's the same concept with arrows. If this really light arrow is hitting something, it's going to be a whole lot easier to stop it once it hits it than something like the 600 grain. Once it hits it, it's going to continue as far as it can until it really loses momentum, which kinetic energy in these guys is high. So that's just kind of a little breakthrough and simple breakdown. I'm not going to go too much into it of the difference between all the arrows and why you would want a difference. Now, with coyote hunting, unlike the other ones, again, there's so many different scenarios. Coyotes, they're going to be starting at, like 100 yards away once you start first seeing them, and then they'll start coming in, get closer around like 50, 45, and you're thinking, okay, if I have like a lightweight spine, I can make a shot at 45 comfortably. But the problem is you're losing kinetic energy. So you might not get a complete pass through, although they're coyotes, you probably will. If you hit some hard bone, you might not, and that's going to cause issues for you. But if you move up right to the middle ground for that, like getting a broadside shot with like a 400 spine that weighs, somewhere around 545 to 550, a very good median ground between the 340s and the 500s. This guy's going to be right in perfect Goldilocks zone because you're going to get a good amount of weight for penetration, but you're also going to get, not too much weight so that you're getting good speed up to around 45, 50 yards even. Um, But the thing is, what like I said with coyotes, that can change within a second. You blink your eye, all of a sudden they're 20 yards farther or closer. So it's really good to have, in my opinion, as many different arrow weights and as many different broadheads for as many different scenarios as you can possibly imagine for coyote. Because, you know, let's say there's one quartering away, so you're having a rib shot where you're having to hit multiple parts of its rib cage. That's going to take a lot of bone, and that's going to need a lot of mass. So you're going to want to go for something heavier, like the 340s or the 400s. But, when you're doing that, that means you're going to have to be within 15, 20, 25 yards, especially with the big 600 grain arrows. But with the medium grain, you can possibly make a shot up to 40 and be comfortable. And then after 40, if let's say you see it, like 80 yards away, you feel like you can somehow proficiently make an 80-yard shot, then you will 100% want to be going for a 500 spine, something that's only 518 to 515 grains. It's a very light arrow. By the time it gets to there, it's only going to be arcing as much as that 600 would, around 40 yards. So that is a really big difference once you start getting to the far numbers. And that's why you're going to want those different arrow builds in coyote hunting, because it changes. It's constantly going to change. They're going to be at different intervals all the time because they're quick and they stop at random places, and they'll always randomly stop. You don't know when they're going to stop, and once they do, that's your chance. So if they stop at 40 yards, you're going to want to pick out an arrow that's good for that 40-yard shot, and whatever it is. If it's, broadside where they're facing towards and it's a really easy shot, or if they're, quartering away or quartering towards where you're going to be hitting a lot more bone and sternum areas. You got to think about those things, because if you're breaking bone, you need a heavier arrow. But if they're too far away, you're not going to be able to hit accurately with a heavier arrow, considering, if it's like 80 yards away and you got a 600 grain arrow, no offense, but good fucking luck making a perfect shot like that. But that's basically my point, is I like to have multiple arrow setups when I go out there. So I usually try to bring, I'll usually bring one of each or two of each, whatever will fit in my quiver. And I only have a 5-arrow quiver for hunting. So I usually bring, 5 arrows, all different. Each one has a different head for a specific situation. Each one has a different weight for a specific situation. Yada yada. And it's imperative, because let's say you go out with just a bunch of mechanical heads on and a whole bunch of 400 grain, 540 spine grain. I fucking mix things up again. 400 grain, I mean 400 spine, like 545 grain arrow with the mechanical on it. You're not, the only shots that you're gonna have that are good is like a broadside shot that's within up to 35 yards. So, especially mechanicals, I don't use them, but I've heard a lot about them and everything like that. And to get expansion on them, you need weight and you need speed. And if you're not close enough, I just wouldn't ever use them in general because of that. But yeah, that's another point of why you should use multiple arrowheads and multiple setups when you're coyote hunting. Because, when I go out, I might even bring something crazy like a 500 grain arrowhead, like the Springer Dot I made. This thing is an axe that flies, basically. Something like this you can use for, like an arterial neck shot, something like that, or a leg shot, trying to hit the arteries in the upper part of the leg is a really good shot, actually. But you would need something like this, and you need to be within at least 15 yards for a shot like that. So that's a specific scenario again. Or let's say they're really, really far away and you have a light spine, so you need an arrowhead that's insanely sharp and able to deliver as much as possible with that smaller weight. So you might not actually want to go for a single bevel, even though a single bevel would be good. You might want to go for something like, let's see here. That kind of shot, you might actually want to go for these guys. Just a classic Magnus Stinger, a Magnus Black Hornet, something like that, a double bevel that's just altogether really good for straight penetration. That's the kind of broadhead you might want for a farther shot. So you might want to have your your longer distance arrows that are set up to have those kind of broadheads. And then your shorter distance, more bone crushing, more, just better altogether arrows will have the nicer single bevels, something like a Grizzly or the Tontos, or even a Dirt Nap DRT, something like that. It would really make a big difference, because then if that situation presents itself, change that arrow. All of a sudden, that situation changed. You can just unlock, throw that other arrow that you know will be better for that in there within a few seconds, and you're ready to go. Just same amount of time that it took the coyote to get farther. So it's just imperative for me, and I think a lot of people should think about that, because I've watched a lot of people bow hunting and videos and things like that, and noticed this too with them, is they have a lot of problems because they only bring one type of arrow build out for their entire hunt. And for things like coyote, there's so many situations that present themselves that you're not going to want only one type, because if they're, doing a completely different thing and you could have something that would work for that, it's going to ruin that hunt for you, because you're like, well, shit, if I had that, I could have done it. And then it's going to be one of those stories like, yeah, if I had that, I would have gotten it, and then you just look like an idiot. So, bring out different arrows for different scenarios. That's basically the borderline. I'm repeating myself at this point, but it's just something I've learned, and I think a lot of people should think about it. And the same with the broadheads. Really think about broadheads for situations on the arrow weights too. You don't want to throw like a little Twizzler broadhead on a really heavy arrow, because then you're just wasting that heavy arrow at that point. Throw a fucking single bevel heavy boy on there. But if you're using a really light arrow, might want to go with the double bevel straight blade that's just really good for instant penetration. And if that's what you're worried about, do that. But that's what I do, and that's kind of my recommendation. I'm going coyote and bunny hunting pretty soon, hopefully here again. So, I'll make a video about it, talk about that again in that video, because this is a bigger topic for me. I really like predator hunting. So, yeah, that's the basics. And like I said, if you guys got any questions, you got any tips, anything, just throw it in the comments. I'm always open to hear it. But other than that, that's it. Simple arrow builds, nothing crazy. Each one has 150 grains added in the front, but they're all cut to 28 inches. So basically they're all the same, other than the fact that they're different spines, and I might put different heads on them for the scenarios, but that's the basic. And you might want to apply, if you want to apply that in your next hunt and it works out really well, let me know, because that's cool for me to know, because that means I can understand that yes, that was working and I can continue to do that. Or if it's vice versa then. And that's the beautiful thing about this stuff. So like I said, throw in the comments. Much love, everybody, and I hope you like the video.